the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. My name's Ellie Greening.
And my name's Sandra Patel-Stewart.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing some of the UK's greatest tech leaders. We'll be discussing war stories, battle scars, and their learnings from their journeys.
Hopefully, you will pick up some great tips, learn from others' experiences, and have a good laugh along the way.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for tuning into the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. We are super happy this week to have Rob Knight on the show. So Rob is the Solution Development and Data Management Director at Experian across EMEA. I am sure you are all aware of Experian, but they are a multinational consumer credit reporting company offering decisioning and analytics tools across the markets. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no, we're super happy to have you on the show. And this is the first time that you've met Sandra as well.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah.
Nice to finally put a face to the name that's been mentioned a number of times in the office by the lovely Ellie. All good things, all positive. Really nice to finally meet you.
Well, I had the pleasure of helping
you
support Rob. Was it about a year and a bit ago, Rob, when you joined Experian?
I think we first crossed paths around about 2 years ago, yeah. So you kindly helped me find this role, so thank you very much for that. But yeah, I think we started our journey together about June last year, June 2 years ago. So quite a while.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Fantastic. So I always like to kick these discussions off with finding out a bit more about you, your journey, I guess how it all started. Like, how did you get into tech? Where did it all start? And then if you could just give us an overview of where you went from where it all started to where you are today.
Sure. So I'm a geek, right? So that's the first thing to offer out there, so that there's no doubt in anyone's mind. I had pigeonholed myself at quite a young age. I liked maths, I liked technology, bit of sci-fi on TV, great. I'll sit in front of that and I'll absorb it all. And then from that, I always had this desire to learn and understand. So it makes it sound like I had a big career trajectory planned and always knew what I wanted to do. Not really. I just knew what felt I was good at and wanted to do that. So that helped me decide through school what I wanted to do. So science, maths, had a relatively natural aptitude for it. And then that led me to engineering. So what really kicked my interest was computer games. Right? Like lots of other people nowadays growing up, the difference being when I was growing up, these games were very much just pixels on a screen moving around. But I loved the interactivity. I loved the fun and joy it could bring. So I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be fun. I'll do some software engineering, some computer science, and I'll get into computer games. So went to university. Had an amazing time. I mean, not only to learn, but one of the main things for university for me was even though I knew I liked technology, I didn't have my heart set on a career. And those 3 years were really, really important for me to try and hone in as to what I'm going to do and why, and see if I did get that moment of inspiration that you hear other people get, right? I'm still waiting on that. So if that comes at any point, maybe I could come back and let you know about that, but I'm still waiting for that epiphany.
Get lots of life lessons as well, don't you, from going to uni, and that helps you shape you as a person and decide what you want to do.
Indeed, right. So I had to look after myself for the first real time, right? I've been very fortunate, but then realizing that money is needed to buy stuff and to have a house and other things, that helped change my direction a bit, because computer games, people do it for free, right? It's a passion, it's a hobby, and there isn't necessarily a huge amount of money in there. So when I first went into university, it was 1999. The world was rosy, the internet's getting bigger and bigger. Halfway through my studying, the dot-com bubble crashed, right? So all of a sudden, this huge industry where there were loads of jobs contracted. So I applied for numerous graduate schemes. I tried lots of different things, and I didn't get in, right? I tried all of the big names I wanted to work in from a gaming world, but unfortunately, again, they had people who were brighter than me who were probably a better fit for what they wanted. So I went back home, and I found a job at a company I'd been working at in the summer holidays. So they were a very small company. They produced radio consoles for big corporations like the BBC, and they produced digital timing systems so that you could have the perfect time, so that when you're a radio presenter, you're able to know exactly when the top of the hour is and when the switch is. So I went there and started working, partly during the summer holidays whilst at university, but then pretty much full-time straight after there. And whilst it wasn't a very high-paid job at all, it was fantastic for experience. It gave me the real grounding in using those things I'd learnt about and seeing how to put them into practical implementation. So I got to work on lots of great projects and travel the world, into China, installing radio stations, customizing the software and products, making sure it all worked. BBC World Service in Prague. This was before the European Union. Prague was an incredible city that was even cheaper back then, before they joined the EU than now. And then various other areas, even Bangor in Wales was one of our projects. That was great. But I was there for 3 years. I was the only software developer. The opportunities for me there were, I either run the company, which wasn't going to happen anytime soon, or I need to move on to grow. And that's why I decided to leave after 3 years to go to Ericsson. So Ericsson, who are the big telecommunications provider, who you've no doubt heard of as well. And that was a big shift. I'd gone from a small, tiny company, a one-man and a dog show. Exactly. It was very different, right? You had so many people doing so many different things. And it took me a while to adapt because I was used to just doing it all myself. That meant that the can-do attitude was good, but it meant I wasn't the best team player when I first went there. And that's really what helped ground me, that learning. I think also part of the reason I got that job was because of the experience I'd gained. Again, academically, I'd done all right. I'd done enough to pass those gates that you need to get through to go into A-levels, to go to university. But the experience really helped pay off and show that I was capable of delivering in that role. I think the real big checkpoint there, or the closest thing I'd come to an epiphany in that role was we did a lot of training. Influencing, negotiation skills, learning about yourself, learning how to deal in different situations, time management. And from those multiple different insights profiles that you can run, your disc analysis, I realized that, yeah, I'm a geek, but actually I quite like people too. And it sounds ridiculous at about 23, 24 years old, but, well, actually, no, I was, 24, 25, but I thought, yeah, maybe I'm not the exact person I thought I was. I pigeonholed myself really early. And maybe there's something in this, working with people instead of just with technology. And that's when I started to change my career trajectory a bit. I'd been coding up until then. So embedded C, Java, SQL, Linux, Windows servers, different types of delivery mechanisms, tools. And then I thought, actually, right, this is where I need to push myself. So I started moving into product management, project management, more about the people problems than it is about the technology problems, and starting to get satisfaction out of there. So I got the chance at Ericsson, and that was great. They gave me the chance to grow. They gave me the chance to run projects. And then from there, I really started to get a hunger again to learn more. I was... So about 2.5, so I was at Ericsson for 5 years. After 2.5 years in that project manager role, I was walking down the street. I walked past the window of a Vodafone shop and I saw this HTC device, right? One of the first smartphones. It had a touch screen. Again, ludicrous by technology standards nowadays, but back then, this 3.2-inch screen was incredible. And I made it my task to get a job at HTC. I wanted to work there. I wanted to work in innovation. I wanted to work on the cutting edge. And after a few rounds of trying, I got in. I mean, I joke about it now with them. I'm still in contact with who was my boss at the time and my boss at the end. But I applied directly on the website a few times. But until I went through an agency, they didn't look at it. So They could have got me directly, but no, it was a recruitment agency that worked.
Yeah,
but that was exactly, well, that's the point. I realised the value of the work that you guys do, right, and the value that agencies can bring, because it's not necessarily about having the opportunity; it's the attention and people paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Yes. So HTC product management, great. Started working in a different industry, proper telecommunications. Really at the cutting edge of innovation and stuff that's never been done before. And at the time, it was really cool, right? We got these new products, these new ways of doing things. People were getting excited. We as an organization were winning awards left, right, center, and we were growing, right? When I joined, we were quite small and we were changing a bit of customization here and there in EMEA. But across that role, I got the opportunity to grow, lead a team of people. And my role when I first joined there was talking to the mobile operators. And as you probably remember as well, having to do heavy customization on a device. So T-Mobile at the time or Vodafone had a load of apps that I'm sure they felt were worthwhile, but many people didn't really want, but that's their way in which they guaranteed their presence on the device. So there was a lot of negotiation, a lot of very, very, very tight timelines to make sure we could go from the initial release to the delivery, to realizing the potential of the product and selling it. So when I first started there, it was tens of thousands of devices. When we really peaked in about 2013, we were shipping millions and millions of products across the markets that I was responsible for. In HTC, I took a bit of a journey as well. So I started off just doing the customizations of the devices, but then I got the opportunity as the company grew to lead different areas and different divisions. So initially in the operator accounts, making sure we were customizing for what is now EE, Vodafone, O2. Then moving into our open market products, so what would have been Phones for You and Carphone Warehouse, running the engineering team there. So all of that huge amount of validation, testing, all of the work to make sure that this is going to work in the market, this is going to perform well, into then also after sales, and then eventually the operations of the product and engineering end to end. And all in all, I was at HTC for 8 years. So it was a long time.
Why did you join HTC at, and what did you leave at?
So I joined in, I checked this on my LinkedIn profile earlier just to make sure I got the dates right. I joined at the start of 2010 and I left in 2018. Okay. So that was the real boom and bust of the mobile industry.
Were you a PM when you joined?
Yes. So the official title was Commercialization Product Manager, but effectively, yes.
So all your background was predominantly telecom. Well, I guess at the start, the first few years, you were more kind of hands-on development, but industry-wise, it was predominantly telecoms, and then you went into financial services.
Exactly. Yeah. So the path so far has been broadcast, so high availability. Radio stations have got to work all the time, right? They are not happy people if a mixer stops working and they're not broadcasting, right? Then into telecommunications, and that's a very different world, right? There's a much higher risk mindset in telecommunications. You don't want to lose service, but again, it's not the same as losing an audience because they flick to a radio channel that you're not broadcasting on. And then even more importantly now, in financial services, you've got to be available 24/7. You've got to make sure people have the opportunity to access what they need to access. Your clients, your customer base, the data you hold has to be, completely accurate. So it's been a very, very different industry change. And working in those really small companies to those large organizations, those big matrix organizations where you try and get things done through lines and through projects and navigating your way through there. I mean, it is fascinating comparing and contrasting how you would do something somewhere to somewhere else, and then really using that experience to know how is best to get the job done. So I'll finish off my journey quickly, sorry. I know, obviously, if I do start boring you, then just stop me.
No, you're very...
well, thank you very much. So I left HTC in 2018 because I I'd completed what I wanted to achieve there to some extent. I'd managed to learn about the end-to-end operations of a business. That's what fascinated me, right? So why are decisions made? I started to understand why decisions were made on not only the pricing, but also the type of decisions made on components, on the type of decisions made with partnerships. So having that end-to-end view from concept to end of life was amazing for me, because it got me to really deeply understand business and how it all comes together. And I wanted to test those skills I'd learned. So I'd been there for a while, and I wanted to go to a smaller company to test those skills. And that's why I moved to a company called Geoslam, based in Nottingham, who do 3D laser scanning equipment. Again, something that's really cool, something that was very much at the forefront of what they were doing, a very disruptive technology, because it gave the industry to do things faster, the opportunity to reduce their cost base whilst improving the quality of output. And I wanted to go there and really help that company grow and that evolution. Yeah, and that's what I did for a good few months there. But then I got contacted out of the blue by Ellie, and this fantastic opportunity at Experian came up. And at the time, I was toying with the idea. I mean, I'd worked in the big corporations before, but I thought that this role is a great challenge, great fun day to day. And again, that test that I was looking for from when I moved to Geoslam. And yeah, it's been a fantastic decision, right? I enjoy every day. Every day is completely packed. So again, thank you for doing this recording this time in the evening. But it is, yeah, it's great. It's the opportunity again to work with multiple different cultures, and I really missed that when I left HTC. So being across EMEA, having the chance to deal with different teams in different areas, in different markets, in different countries, it's great. Again, it's something that really interests me, as I mentioned before, about learning more about myself and enjoying the people side of things, understanding how different organizations, but then different cultures approach problems fascinates me, especially from working in the Far East and then through Eastern Europe and then America, having to tailor your communications to be able to make the most out of a situation or to be able to get alignment. It's fascinating.
Fantastic. Sounds like you've had a very interesting, fascinating, diverse background and career journey, working in lots of different areas, like you say, with different people, cultures, environments, which is great. So with regards to people, in fact, in your current role, what size team are you responsible for in your current role?
Yeah, so directly, it's around about 150. So that's a direct team of engineers, project managers, business analysts, programs, and data management. So it's quite a large direct team. Indirectly, the budget for the area I operate in is for around about 300 people. So there's two different hats I wear, right? There's a practice owner to make sure that things are done in the most efficient way across all of the markets. And then I have my direct team, which are responsible for some of the big transformation projects we do, some of the innovations into those new platforms, Ellie, that you mentioned at the start in terms of decision analytics and open banking and other opportunities. So it's a very diverse role, which is great for me because I love the diversity. But like any job, there's always the challenge there, right? There's always those strains on how do I get a really good communication and message for 350 people that's going to be relevant across every country? How do I align these things? There's these fascinating, again, human problems that need to be solved to maximize the team's efficiency.
Okay. So obviously directly you have 150. I think the viewers and the listeners would probably be really interested to understand in more detail how you lead those 150, like what your leadership style is, and also what would they say about you? How would they describe your leadership style?
Honestly, it depends on the day, but I think it's on the whole, it should be broadly positive. I mean, the leadership is again a really interesting concept to me, because you can break it up however you want it, right? And it means so many different things to different people. So my flavour of it is I really see there's two types of leader, right? There's your inspirational leader who tries to give people things to aspire to, things to drive towards. So using leadership as a concept and a framework for people to work in whilst achieving what they're going to do, right? If you have a team of 150 people, you're not going to be able to tell everyone exactly what to do, nor should you. But the way in which they should engage with each other, the way in which they should go about trying to deliver, that building that determination and grit to be able to get to the end of the result, that knowing that high performance will be rewarded, that comes through communication and building trust and really helping people understand the value they add. Now, I use the term inspirational leader there as an ideal case. I try and fit into that category because I think it's worked really well with me and it's worked well with people in the past. I think there are downsides to working that way, but I'll come to that in a moment. And I see the other type of leader as really someone who is probably a bit more nurturing, is more like a shepherdess or a shepherd, bringing people together and making sure they're all moving in that direction. And they all get there and it all works and you don't lose a sheep, right? And that is, again, a very good style if that works for you. I think the downside with like the aspirational bit is sometimes it can be perceived that you are trying to drive people too hard, right? Whereas actually what you want is to have a really high bar and people to get there ideally, but get as close as they can through maximizing their own potential. And that's why I try and approach things that way. I get my satisfaction now not from completing the software problem like it used to be in the past, but by enabling people. Can I give someone the chance to realize whatever their dream is, or give them the opportunity to learn something they want to, or help steer them so that they can be better? That's how I see my role as a leader. And then more importantly, in a way, is to enable the people who, say, report into me or the people who report into them to be able to do the same, to give people access and to build an environment where you can make people ideally realize their dreams from that amazing epiphany they had of, oh, I want to be the best developer in this field. That's how I see leadership, and how I try and deploy that is communication, is through being available, or being as available as possible, is being accessible. And I don't just mean that by, email or calls, it's by pre-COVID-19, traveling around, going to see people, making sure you can build that rapport, giving them the chance to really understand you and you to understand them, and really get underneath what makes the business tick. I think I've seen in the past lots of mistakes in leaders coming in and just assuming they know everything, and not understanding what limitations or restrictions have been in the past. And the job as that leader is to break down those inhibitors, to break down those things that are stopping people being able to achieve. So, yeah, the aspirational, more bulldozer type leader just trying to remove roadblocks, that's more my style and how I see leadership working. I think there's horses for courses, right? You do need to change and adapt depending on what's going on, but that's my natural and preferred way.
As long as you, obviously everyone's got their different style and different approach, haven't they? But as long as you're doing your style to the best of your ability and for the best suited for your team, that's the most important thing about leadership, right? So that's the most important thing. And obviously you've discussed your career and it's vast and you've worked for some amazing companies and clearly progressed well. But we all know that through your kind of darkest days, you learn the most about yourself, and the most, I guess, about your career development is done through adversity and challenges. So it would be good if you can kind of tell us a war story that you think you got your biggest learning from, or something that really impacted you and made you have a think about your approach and you learned a lot from.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a couple. I think there's, I think the time I learned the most is always when it's the biggest challenge, right? Or when you have convinced yourself something's not possible. I mean, that's always the hardest one. And I had a moment like that when I was in the very early days of my career. I've mentioned installing a radio station in China, right? Went over to China with a load of equipment, with some software, installed it. It didn't work. I couldn't work out why it didn't work. It didn't work. And the company was small. So if we didn't get paid for that job, it's all over, right? It's game over for the company.
Were you on your own in China? Did you get sent on your own over there?
Oh no, I've been over there a few times on my own, but this time I think I was with the MD, so it was okay. Oh, in terms of, I mean, it doesn't necessarily help with the pressure.
Yeah.
It's his company. But yeah, we're over there and you put it all together. It goes, it doesn't work. Okay, so you've got a week to make this work, to get the customer to sign it off so that they can start broadcasting, and so that the company can get paid so it can continue to be sold and then work. And that really became that I had a few sleepless nights over that. And I'd managed to work myself up into the situation where it felt like the whole world was on me. And again, I was 22, 23. I was lying in the hotel room, not being able to sleep. And then it dawned on me, which is, I can only actually do my best in this situation, right? So, yeah, maybe all of this is a consequence, and this can happen, and that can happen, and that can happen. But I'll tell you what, if I don't try, then it certainly is going to fail. So if I do nothing, it's game over. So I should do something and try and work through the problems. And I think after a couple of days of that going around my head, I started to really get to grips with it, diving in, finding the problems, getting through. And then it wasn't satisfaction at the end, it was more relief, but I got there. And that, even though it was very, very early on, I think that was the biggest learning, because there's a lot of times, especially nowadays, right, when you are sometimes your own company, you are with yourself days on end, that people can be their harshest critics. There's a place for it, and I think there is a positive out of being very introspective and critical of what you do, because you can learn from it, but there needs to be a line that you have drawn yourself to say, this is what I'm willing to accept as self-pressure, but this is how I'm going to get out of it, because I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to make this come off. And I refer back to that time mentally a lot. Even
how close
to
the wire were you then? Because your MD said you had a week to get it sorted. How close to the wire were you at the end of it?
I think we went a bit longer than the week, so the wire got extended a touch. But that's what weekends are for, right? And
you got it at the end. No,
it got done, right? The key was to get it done, and it got done. It wasn't, and again, it wasn't the end of the world. It was something again that has helped me develop the way I wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sounds like that must have been a tough old trip to China. But I think it's really interesting, obviously, when COVID first kind of hit the UK and things started changing in the market, I was really fortunate to be able to speak to you one day that I was really struggling, and you gave me some fantastic advice, which made me feel so much better about the situation that I was currently in. And I was in the position where I was rescinding offers, and it wasn't a good day, was it, Sandra? And you were there to help me out.
Not one of the best.
One of the best days, and you helped me out of it. But it'd be interesting to find out what's the most valuable piece of advice that someone's given you.
Well, I'm glad it helped. It was just a chat, right? But you can always find a positive, right? There's always got to be a positive, even when you are going through the worst professional day of your life, right? And that's something I try and tell people all the time is, There's got to be something good out of today, even if it means you finish at 4:30 and it's been terrible. At least you've got a bit of extra time for yourself. My old boss at HTC, he's someone who I really clicked with after a while, right? We had a turbulent relationship, but in a very good way, in that he would push me. He'd push all the right buttons with me to make me be better. He would find all of the right mechanisms. And I think the best advice he ever gave me was, never believe your own hype, right? You might think you're doing a good job, but in reality, it's how people perceive your work. It doesn't matter how hard you're working. It doesn't matter how much you've achieved. If people don't think you're doing all of that, then it's just going unnoticed behind the scenes. So what he was trying to teach me there was, right, it was a case of, I was complaining. Right? I was, oh, look, you know, I'm working every hour. I'm doing this. You know, I'm doing great. He went, yeah, but I don't want to be here forever, right? And if I don't want to be here forever and you want to push yourself to the next level and you want to have opportunities, then you're going to have to make sure that people understand the value you add. Yeah, I can talk about you as much as I like with them. That's great. And yeah, they know you're all right? So that's fine. But when I go, no one's going to be doing that for you. You need to start doing this for yourself. And I'm like a lot of British people, right? I'm not great with the self-promotion. I certainly wasn't. I'm not great with, I like to try and be humble, right, as much as possible. So it was a real eye-opener for me, and that's why it was the best advice, because it was a real blind spot. I did not know how to get to the next level of my job or give me the opportunities in the future, and that opened my eyes to be able to say, that's the way, right? That's what I'm going to have to do. Now, it can be deployed very negatively, and you don't want to get, I don't try not to get caught in that trap of just doing the self-promotion. You always have to be able to back it up with reality and with doing that great job. But there is no harm in people understanding that you're doing that great job and you're working and that you're adding a huge amount of value.
And that's interesting, actually, because I was reading an article today that was all about how tech in COVID, the businesses, enterprise organizations are really opening their eyes to the value that tech are bringing, and it's the opportunity right now for tech teams to shine and finally, I guess, take all the glory for all the hard work that they've been doing for years, because they're doing it in the background. But self-promotion is like you say, it's a tricky one. You need to do it in the right way, but it's super important to be able to progress and develop in your career long term. So great.
Fantastic. So I think it'd be really interesting for the listeners to and for us to understand more about what drives you, what makes you tick, what are you passionate about, and where's that come from? You know, I guess we're all shaped, and we all kind of head on a journey that's kind of come from a background or childhood, or, you know, something that may have, you know, kind of given us that grit and passion, and it'd be good to understand a little bit more about you from that perspective.
Okay, cool. I mean, it's something that I've heard in some of your other podcasts, especially the Women in Tech podcast, where I also have imposter syndrome, right? I also regularly doubt myself and think maybe it's just all been luck that I've managed to get here, right place, right time.
Number of times I've said that myself.
Yeah, and now I'm grossly out of my depth. And then again, I try and calm myself down and say, oh no, actually, this is from experience. This is from learning. This is from doing that hard work and adding that value. So what drives me, frankly, is failure. It is not achieving what I think I'm capable of. And it is, again, this is part of trying to understand myself better, learning that I have a real issue with letting people down, like a real issue, naturally. So I use that to a strength to make sure that when I am trying to do something for someone, enabling someone else's career or delivering something for the business, I want to do it. It's a commitment I've made to be able to do it. It's not something I want to slip. It's not something that I enjoy when goes wrong. I am focused to be able to deliver it. And I use that kind of imposter syndrome to help push me to say, this is how, because I'm constantly imagining how things are going to fail. It helps me protect against those failures to be able to then deliver. And I use it as a mechanism like that. But going back to, say, the passion, it is understanding how things work. I just want to understand how. How did they do that? I get enthralled by packaging sometimes, right? So I know it sounds ridiculous, but from my time at HTC, we didn't just deal with the phones, right? We deal with the boxes, the sleeves, the user guides, the manuals, safety guides, headphones. So making sure you had optimal packaging is a fantastic puzzle and a problem, right? What's the best way of filling this box? What's the best way of doing that? So anytime I come across any new type of packaging now, I'm fascinated by it. Right, why have they done that? Okay, so that's so they can get more in a shipping container to be able to get over here, so it's lower cost. Oh, they've done that to stand out so they can stack more on the shelves like that. So even very menial things, I always want to understand how, and that's what's driven me, I suppose, from being a bit more of a geek and into technology, because I don't like, I'm a bit worried about the future, if I'm honest, because a lot of people take technology for granted, right? And as you were saying earlier, you know, some companies now are giving plaudits out to the tech people who've made it work. I know our people have done a fantastic job to be able to make sure everyone can work from home. And it was no mean feat. And they turned that around in effectively hours, right? I mean, it's incredible. But not understanding how things work means we could become a bit dependent on maybe other countries or other interests. And that's why I'm really passionate, or I really enjoy what you're doing, specifically in Leeds, and I want to see more of it in other markets, because I think that understanding why and how is key to unlocking the potential of the future for anyone.
Fantastic. Obviously, you've had an amazing career, but what has been, and like obviously fixing the issue over in China must have been a pretty big, I mean, I'm sure there was a big celebration between you and the MD after that one. But what would you say has been your greatest achievement today?
I'd love to say there's been so many, but in reality, it's just the job, right? Your job is to deliver your projects. So it's hard. I think it ends up being a matter of, say, flashback moments you look at. So yeah, China's one. Launching the HTC One M7, which was a metal phone. It won a huge amount of awards in the industry, and being responsible for the go-to-market of that was big. But again, that wasn't something I did on my own. I think the greatest achievements, I'd say, are some of the people who I've helped improve their career chances, or given them opportunities, or I'll say taking a gamble on them, but seeing their potential and giving them the chance to actually realise it. And through, you know, I've done a bit of this at Experian. It's only been a while. I did a bit of it at Geoslan, but through that longevity at HTC, I had the chance to really drive, bringing in talent, giving them the opportunity and getting them to grow, and seeing how some of those people have developed and what they're doing now is a really big, you know, personal satisfaction and reward for me. I think that's where I see it. It's hard to put it on one delivery because your job is to deliver. But again, that leadership, that nurturing, that's where I think I've probably added the value I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, no, it's nice to be able to help and support people and get them to where they want to be, which is really important. Obviously a big role. You're working across multiple time zones, so that takes its toll. You're always busy. So how do you look after yourself, Rob? What keeps you sane and healthy? And how do you manage the stress of it all?
Depends on the day again. It really depends on the day. I think, so I like traveling, right? So I really like going around, visiting, seeing people face to face. And I will sacrifice a lot of personal time to be able to do that, right? And I'm glad to do it because, again, I enjoy that contact and I enjoy that time. And if anything, that helps me de-stress because it helps solve problems faster. Now, I like to also exercise, right? And try and run. I've had a bit of a foot injury, but that should be healing up soon. So walking now. So getting out, walking, listening to podcasts, watching some rubbish sci-fi series on Netflix. I do that a lot. Just basically escapism from the day-to-day. That's what really helps. I mean, we are in a 24/7 world, right? So I'm contacting on weekends, late into evenings. And again, that's part of the role. So using the time I have to declutter my mind by thinking about nothing, that really helps.
It's hard though, isn't it, when the role's that demanding and you've got a young family as well. So managing that must be difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pre-COVID-19, we had a lot of football, which was good. So kids football's fantastic, doing that coaching, getting out, getting frustrated about something else other than work. And why aren't you passing at the right time? Come on, shoot. That's really good, right? It's a great outlet.
You watch it as well?
Not just for me. I do watch it. I'm a Tottenham fan. I'm not a Liverpool United fan. I'm a Tottenham fan, and I am.
Oh, don't mention that. Oh my God, I got so much stick for saying Liverpool United.
You're never going to live that one down, are you? Really?
I'm never going to live that one.
I think it's a good test to make sure that the people you have on have listened to previous podcasts. So that should be the ongoing joke forever, right? It's a good joke to have. But yeah, watching football sounds really love that, and going to the stadium, making a day of it. Yeah, that's always good too. Again, it's what's really interesting. I do take a lot of say leadership or inspiration from sport. Sport is a fascinating place to check in with resilience. You have a fixed game, you have rules, and then how people's temperament, how they approach things, is a really good marker of some of the skills you can learn. So if we're talking, say, in terms of people I admire, a lot of them come from sport, because you get to see someone put it all on the line, completely laid bare, come back against adversity, and then I find that really inspiring. And I like to use a lot of sporting analogies in work, right? Especially when describing a problem, right? When you're doing that translation of something really technical and a real big issue, and you're trying to get the senior exec to buy into it, a football analogy, a cricket analogy, a tennis analogy really works well, because you start to be able to really get people to see the context of the issue and what's going on.
That's great.
Fantastic. So last one for you then, Rob. You've had a great career. You've done lots and lots of had different roles, delivered lots of exciting projects. What's the next what's on the agenda next for you? What are you excited about? What big plans have you got coming up?
It's a very good question, because I don't know, and I never know, right? So again, I've got a lot of things I want to do and deliver, right? We've got a lot of work to get through for the rest of this year and the rest of the financial year. But myself, I don't know. I want to make sure that again, I can give people opportunities, right? And I can help the team grow, and I can hit some of those commitments. But I think I've tried setting out a roadmap for myself, right? I've tried in the past saying, oh, this is what I want to be doing by this age. This is what I want to be doing there. And if anything, I found it debilitating, because it came, I've missed that checkpoint.
It's hard, isn't it? Like time flies so quick. Like you just don't, it's just there before you know it. What about outside of work? Is there anything, have you got anything that you're excited about, looking forward to outside of work? Or you've been...
Well, from the 17th of June, the Premier League's back. So football, that'll be good to see again. And the eventual restarting of the kids' football will be good.
Is it like 2 or 3 games a week or a day or something?
Me and Sandra are dreading it.
Yeah, I'm dreading
it. Well, enjoy it up until then, right? There's a good chance, perhaps if things do unfortunately get worse, it will all be called off. But you still have nearly a month to enjoy without football. It's really, again, another boring insight into me, right? My mood can be so dictated by football. A good result, I'm happy. A bad result, an underperformance, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I don't know the players personally, right? I've never met the manager. You know, I get told I was brought up this way, but again, having something external in your life again for the de-stress really helps, because it's a fantastic distraction for me.
It's only a de-stress if they're winning.
Oh yeah, but then it's a different type of stress if they lose, right? So it's fine.
Amazing, perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak to us, Rob. It's been fab having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been really interesting.
Rob, if people want to get in touch and ask you any questions, is it best via LinkedIn, or are you on Twitter, or?
LinkedIn is definitely the best.
You're not on Twitter, are you? I tried to look for you earlier, actually.
No.
You're
I mean,
busy.
no. I like.
I've only just joined. I make it sound like I'm a regular Twitter. I've only just set it up.
I really like LinkedIn, because again, it's mainly professional and it's good about technology. Twitter, because of lots of stuff that goes on and goes around there, and mainly again, football banter related, can be very distracting. So I try and stay off there.
Good idea. Yeah, perfect. Well, if anyone wants to get in touch, it's just Rob Knight at Experian, so they can message you on LinkedIn. But yeah, it's been fantastic having you on the show and catching up. And thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Nice to
Pleasure.
meet you.
It's been great to catch up.